It started with a whisper, a chill that crawled up my spine and settled in the pit of my stomach. He was sitting across the aisle on the late-night train, a man I'd never seen before, but his eyes held a terrifying recognition. I tried to ignore him. I pulled out my book, a worn paperback I'd read a dozen times, hoping to lose myself in its familiar pages. But his gaze was a physical weight, pressing down on me, making it impossible to concentrate. The rhythmic click-clack of the train wheels usually lulled me, but tonight, it sounded like a ticking clock, counting down to something I couldn't define. He cleared his throat. It was a soft sound, barely audible above the train's hum, but it jolted me. I looked up, forcing myself to meet his gaze. He had kind eyes, surprisingly so, framed by deep laugh lines. But there was something else there, something calculating and sharp. "Long night?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. It wasn't an unusual question. People on trains make small talk. But the way he said it, the implied understanding in his tone, sent another shiver through me. "Just heading home," I replied, keeping my voice neutral, my gaze fixed on his lips. I didn't want to give away any more information than necessary. The city lights blurred past the window, painting streaks of orange and purple across the dark glass. Every shadow felt like a potential threat. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Home is a complicated place for some, wouldn't you say?" My heart hammered against my ribs. How could he know? I'd told no one. Not a soul. This was my secret, buried so deep I'd almost convinced myself it was a bad dream. Yet, here he was, a stranger on a train, hinting at it with casual ease. I don't know what you mean," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. My hands were clammy, and I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my temple. I wanted to run, to disappear, but the train car was a metal box, hurtling through the darkness. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping even lower, more intimate. "Oh, but you do. You know exactly what I mean. The locked room. The unfortunate incident. The quiet way you dealt with it." My breath caught in my throat. Each word was a precise jab, hitting a nerve I thought was long since dead. The locked room. The incident. He knew. He actually knew. My mind raced. Who was this man? A cop? A private investigator? Someone I'd crossed paths with years ago, someone who'd seen something they shouldn't have? The possibilities were endless and terrifying. Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. I felt exposed, stripped bare under his unnerving gaze. He had a scar, a thin white line just above his left eyebrow, that seemed to deepen when he smiled. He chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. "Just a fellow traveler. Someone who appreciates discretion. And someone who's learned to recognize the look in your eyes. The look of someone carrying a very heavy burden." He gestured vaguely towards my bag. "That old leather messenger bag you carry? The one with the faded initials on it? Remember the day you bought it? Just after you tidied things up?" This was beyond coincidence. This was an invasion. He wasn't just guessing, he had details. Details only I, and maybe one or two others long gone, would know. The faded initials. The specific day. My carefully constructed walls were crumbling. Fear warred with a flicker of something else. Anger. How dare he? How dare this stranger probe into the most painful, the most hidden part of my life? I wanted to lash out, to scream, but the fear held me captive. "You have no right," I said, my voice regaining a sliver of its former strength, laced with ice. "You don't know anything." He raised an eyebrow, his smile returning, more pronounced this time. "Don't I?" The smell of bleach, the frantic scrubbing with a worn-out brush. The careful disposal of evidence. The sleepless nights that followed, replaying every single second. Yes, I think I know quite a bit. My blood ran cold. He was describing it. My secret. My shame. My survival. He was painting a picture of my darkest hour with words. I felt a surge of adrenaline. This couldn't continue. I couldn't let this man have this power over me. I needed to understand how he knew, and then I needed to make sure he never spoke of it again. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice tight. My gaze locked with his, a silent challenge passing between us. He leaned back, his expression softening, the calculating edge receding slightly. "Nothing, really. Just a conversation. To acknowledge that sometimes people do what they have to do. And sometimes those things leave a mark. A mark that only certain people can see." He paused, and for a moment, I thought he was going to leave it at that. But then he added, "And sometimes, those who carry those marks find solace in knowing they're not entirely alone in their understanding." He reached into his own worn jacket pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He slid it across the narrow table between us. I hesitated, then picked it up. It was a business card. Not a typical one, but elegant, with a simple name embossed in gold, Arthur Finch. Discreet inquiries. Underneath, a phone number and an email address. "If you ever feel like talking," he said, his eyes meeting mine with a surprising gentleness, "about anything at all. Not to confess. Just to be heard." He stood up then, as smoothly as he had sat down. "Enjoy the rest of your journey," he said, a final, almost imperceptible nod. And then he was gone, disappearing into the dim light of the next car. I sat there for a long time, the train rumbling on, the business card clutched in my hand. The fear was still there, a dull ache, but it was mingled with a profound sense of shock and a strange, unsettling relief. He knew. He knew, and he hadn't condemned me. He hadn't threatened me. He had offered understanding. It was a terrifying encounter. A violation of my deepest privacy. But as the train pulled into my station, and I stepped out into the cool night air, I realized something. For the first time in years, the weight of my secret felt a fraction lighter. The stranger on the train hadn't just known my secret, he had, in his own peculiar way, validated my survival. And that, I was beginning to understand, was a power all its own.